2 Ezra 6:27. For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which have been so long without fruit shall be declared. Call Lord Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Wakaha Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerely risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than never. Right, the would-be judges, the 144,000, the tabernacle of David that are going to rule on earth in the kingdom of heaven that's coming here to earth, as it says in the Bible. When John the Revelator saw the new heaven coming down onto earth, and the laws of heaven will be enforced on earth as it is in heaven, as the Lord's Prayer says, by the 144,000 who make up 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, the new world government, all right, which is actually going to be a heavenly government, not a government of men, but of the men of the Lord, all right. And to the rest of the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathen nations that have the appearance of the heathen nations. This is not a black only thing. And to the few Akwaf, meaning the sisters that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And this is a video that's being profiled, that I'm profiling as final, I guess is more parts to it, by the brother, the True Doctrine 144 sequel. All right. And so I'm going to just let it play for like the first maybe 6 minutes and some change. I may come in once or twice to add in, you know, to spiritually add, to lamb back off some of the things that the brother is saying. But you got to remember the hijack words. African and Jayish, both are hijack words. The name of the video is They Call You Africans to Hide Your Identity. And that's exactly what they do. All right. The same way they call themselves Ish. Right. And the suffix Ish means to be like. Okay. So receipts will be provided. Information will be provided to lamb back, to skillfully add to what this brother has done. And so without any further ado, let's let this video play.
Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. And this is why it's dangerous to let your enemy educate you, because everything that you know has been taught from an indoctrinated standpoint. All you know is what you've been taught. That's why the Lord put the spirit on us to wake you up out this madness of all this miseducation of you so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. You only know what you've been taught. Now, if no other idea or no other teaching has been placed there, you're going to believe what you've been taught, and that's the psychology of the mind. So let's get into this lesson. So I want to go into this word African, because what they have done, Salakia, they put this word African on you, and they labeled you Africans. You know, when you go into all the literature going into the slave trade, they, call the Israelites, which we descended from. We are Hebrew Israelites. That's not an organization. That's not a group. It's actually a lineage, ethnicity of people that we come from. And a lot of you jakes just don't really understand that. You see a lot of these jakes that they don't know nothing. They don't know anything. And I say that all the time, and I'm just telling the truth. They don't know nothing. So going here, right? So when you go into the literature and you go into all the books, they're going to call these people Africans. 1 second. They're going to refer to these people, our people, as Africans. But why do they use that word African? Now our people call themselves Some of them call themselves African American. That's nothing but confusion. How you gonna be from two continents? You know, two continents. How is that an ethnicity? Think about it.
Exactly.
So let's go here. So this was purposely done to hide who you were, and they still do it in many different ways. Now they put this black label on you to add more layers to the confusion. And like I always say, like the Elder Malcolm always says, that's where I got this from. When you put black in front of something, everything after that point is automatically negative. Black sheep, all right? Black magic, black ball. When you blackball somebody, you sabotage them. And you should see a pattern with that. But let's stick on this word African, because most of our people, they, out of their ignorance, associate themselves with being this pseudo made-up ethnicity called African people. And those so-called Africans, they are Hamites. They're not African people. African is newspeak. It's like if I created a word today and I put it in the dictionary and I give that word, I give that word a definition. Thus, I created a new word with a new definition. That's all they did with the word African. There's no such thing as African people. And the truth of it, there's no such thing as the African continent. Now, you only know that today because you've been taught that. Let's go here. So who are these people? They're not Africans. And I'm going to prove that to you. Deuteronomy 28:68. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ship." This ain't talking about the physical place, Egypt. When you go into the precept, Egypt represents bondage, slavery, because we was in slavery in Egypt, right? And then you know the proximity from Israel to Egypt, you don't need to take a ship there. It wouldn't make sense. So they're talking about something else, talking about America, this transatlantic slave trade. It says, "By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there you should be sold unto your enemies." The word enemy is placed here because you got enemies. You lovey-dovey Christians don't understand that because you've been effed up. It says you should be sold to your enemies. Well, what happened on these after this slave voyage? They were sold on these auction blocks to different plantations all over.
Shipped all over the world, actually. Because the Northern Kingdom, which was already here, biblical history and even J-ish history, almanacs identify America as Asareth. And the Bible identifies that the Northern Kingdom would flee to Asareth where never mankind dwelt. So, you know, the so-called natives of the Americas were dwelling here for, you know, over millennia alone. You know, the other people weren't here. Now, other people were traveling, coming here and leaving again, but they weren't dwelling here. All right, so I just want to read a couple scriptures to solidify the house of bondage is talking about basically going into slavery via ships. This is Exodus 20:2. "I am Yahweh thy power, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." So there's the Bible is making a comparison to Egypt being a place of slavery for the Israelites. Deuteronomy 5:6. "I am Yahweh thy power, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." Okay, and so you as a people, you Israelites that is, after disregarding the law, statutes, and commandments, the punishment with you was to go back into Egypt again. We went back into the house of bondage via ships. All right, we were scattered all over the place, but you know, and there are records of the Northern and Southern Kingdom being on slave ships together. I have numerous books, not just one, but numerous books that actually have the manifest records of natives and Negroes, so-called or so-called African slaves on ships. And that's exactly like he said, and that's what these Edomites do, and what they have done, and what they continue to do. They try to make everyone that's swarthy in complexion with any woolly type hair, for the most part, they try to always say that they're African, or they have some sort of link back to Africa, even if they live in Australia or wherever they might live. You know, they'll try to make, you know, like they'll take the archetype, the the dark-skinned people of Eurasia, the part of Asia that they call Europe, and they'll say, well, those dark people, you know, when they find the relics or the images there, they'll always try to, you know, link them back to Africa somehow. No, Eurasia was full of dark melanated people as well. Okay. So once again, I'm going to read one more. This is Exodus 13 and 14. And it shall be, when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, what is this? And thou shalt say unto him, by the strength of the hand of Yahweh brought us out of Egypt from the house of bondage. All right. So after the fall, after the discontinuing from our heritage that is completely, totally ignored by mainstream Jayism. All right. Like as if it didn't happen, because according to them, they've always known who they were. But the prophecies in the Bible gives you strict, very strict and detailed information that the Israelites were separated from their heritage, which makes sense. Hence the hijack of the J-ish word, or the J-O-O-ish word. Okay? But this is Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah 50 and 33. And it reads, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast, and they refused to let them go. Spain, which we're going to talk about Spain and the Morenos after he finishes, to make that a connection and to expose lies. Seville, Spain became the reverse slave capital of the triangular slave trade. So as they were, making this triangle from Eurasia to Africa to America, then back again. All right. Slaves were the ships didn't leave America empty. They left full of cargo of natives. And then sometimes the transportation of slaves around the Americas included both so-called African Negroes and native Negroes on the same ships. All right. Because in 1682, they began to, there was an act that was done. Let's provide a receipt, and then I'm going to let him continue. There was an act that was enacted in 1682, and that was the act that labeled or identified the natives of America and the Negroes as the same people, because in fact they were, and they were both labeled Negroes. So you got a lot of so-called natives that are called Africans or Negroes today as a result of that. All right. But Virginia passed two acts in 1682 that combined Native Americans and Africans into one category as Negroes. So these census numerators, you can see that they both were melanated, chocolate and swarthy or tawny people. All right. Okay. And then it says, which one were you? Well, the thing is, the truth of the matter is that they're the same race, different tribes. It's as simple as that. So let's let the brother continue.
The whole world. And they was traded like a commodity. It says, for bond men, the slave man, and bond woman, slave woman. These are the Israelites. These not Africans that were sold throughout the whole world. And you had something that was called the transatlantic slave trade. It says that no man shall buy you, meaning that's why you have to go into words. You got to be studious so no one can trick you. This word buy, when you look up in the Hebrew, it means redeem. When you go to the word redeem, it means save you. It ain't talking about buy as purchase. That's why you have to know what words properly mean.
Exactly.
So you won't fall for this okie doke. So let's go here. So they will label these people Africans. And let's get into this African myth. Let me get into chat GPT. And you brothers need to start using chat GPT, to do lessons and, to get information. It's a powerful resource like anything else, like the Blue Letter. We got Strong's Concordance. so on and so forth. Use your resources. Let's get into this.
Of the people on that continent. And yes, there is historical confusion because the Romans only used the word for one small region, not the whole continent. Let's break it down clearly and simply. Number one, African was not originally the name of the whole people of the continent.
Do you hear this? So what they did is put the word and created people called African people so they can push these narratives. It's all about an agenda for deception.
Which makes sense because when you learn the history about Scipio Africanus, all right, whose brother Scipio Asiaticus, Asia is named after Asiaticus, and Africa eventually was named after Africanus, because when Africanus conquered, he didn't conquer the whole of Africa, he conquered the portion that was just mentioned in this video. And later on, the whole continent got given that name, just as Asia got given that name, all right, after being conquered by Asiaticus.
When Romans said Africans, they were only talking about people near Carthage, mainly the Afri-Berber tribes, in today's Tunisia and surrounding areas. It did not refer to
that Carthage area. That was, if anyone who's seen the movie, the first movie of Gladiator with Russell Crowe, which Russell Crowe and Commodus. Matter of fact, there should have been way more swarthy people in that, because by that time Rome was not being ruled by Edomites anymore. See, this is and that goes into what they're trying to hide. All right. And as we go further into this video and we connect some words, and then we're going to go into history that reveals that fact. Okay. But in that movie, Gladiator, that's what was going on. Right, that the battle for power it was a change in power. The so-called Negroes were now ruling and ended up being the rulers of all of Europe, all the way up until the Renaissance. All right, until Esau came back into power and fulfilled prophecy, the rebirth of Rome, the dragon that was wounded but yet lived. All right, so these words, African and Jayish, are hijacks. African to label the Israelites, give them a false identity, and then Jayish was the hijack on the converts, the Edomite converts, and so that the name Israel will be no more in remembrance, according to Psalms 83. All right, because they really never have called themselves Israelites, and even in their own definitions, it tells you that Israeli is a modern day citizen of Israel, not to be confused with the ancient Israelites. Okay, now that I said that, let me provide a receipt. I'm actually using this as a thumbnail in videos now, but this was an AI overview from about 3-4 weeks ago. And right there, the question was asked about are the people in the land, and what the AI said. No, it said no. Israelis are not the same as the biblical Israelites. And then there's more to read, but it highlighted that. Okay, and then it says though there is a direct lineage. Well, that's because it is a direct lineage, because they're Edomites. They're the brothers of Jacob's brother Esau, or Esau, as they like to call the white Christians now. See. Yeah, so Esau, the rabbis are now pointing out that Rome and the white Christianity, which came out of Rome, this white ring racist, Christianity, that they're Esau. And it's beautiful to see them do that. But let's let this brother finish. It just got a few more seconds, and then I'm going to
West Africans,
come with these
Central
evidence.
Africans, East Africans, Southern Africans, Egyptians, Nubians, Ethiopians, etc. So the word
And Chat GPT is going off because he's still referring to these people as Africans. Remember, these are the sons of Ham. When you go into the biblical ethnicities, African is not ethnicity. And I know a lot of you brothers might.
And he's absolutely right. And I'm going to provide a receipt from the Zondervan's Dictionary Bible. Okay. And it tells you right here that Ham is the youngest son of Noah, the progenitor, meaning the father of the dark races, not the Negroes. Which is funny that, the newer versions of it, that this definition has been changed. Not the Negroes is not there anymore. And you could, that's because of us. But it says, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. And so, like the curse of Ham, but the curse of Ham fell on Canaan. It had nothing to do with Shem, who are the, and they use that J word, but that word, that's a hijack. It would have been better if they used Yahweh, or even if they said Judean and not a JOO. But nevertheless, even the physical features of the so-called Negro is different from those of Ham. All right. And Ham can't really grow beards, and they're both swarthy in complexion with woolly type hair, but the Negroes sometimes have different textures of hair. Africans always have woolly hair, but their features are strikingly different. Okay. And but you have to remember too that Jake has been mixed among them for so long, so there are many Jakes that do have those Hamitic features. But if when you separate, you can clearly see the difference between the two. So what was happening, and how does that have anything to do with this, what I'm about to show you? All right. Because the Negroes got scattered. And when they got scattered, they not only went into West Africa, they also went into Europe. All right. Now remember, the fall of Portugal and Spain, as you can see, these Moors, the fall of Portugal and Spain is what ushered in the rise of Edom in the Renaissance. So again, the fall of Portugal and Spain is what gave way to the rise of Italy, of Spain. Of Spain's fall, Portugal's fall. And let's get the definition of that. Now that you're looking at that, all right. Do I have the Edamon online? I thought I had it, but that's okay. I'll just show it. I have it in my phone because I don't want to mess up what I've already put up on the screen there. I did put it up, but I didn't save it. So here's a definition of Moreno. All right. Okay. A Spanish Portuguese JOO, or not a JOO, but actually Judean, Salakia, of the late Middle Ages, converted, all right, it says, who converted to Christian, especially one forcibly converted by secretly adhering to the Holy Scriptures, and they put Judaism. Then it gives you further, it says word origin from Spanish, literal pig, with reference to the Judeans, prohibition, and Arabic, all right, against eating pork, eating pig meat. So now to identify, it told you that it was a Moreno or a Jew, meaning they were the same. Remember, the Morenos is where the word Moor comes from. All right. There's a joke among the brothers and the Israelites that are the Morenos. It's talking about the brothers, the Judites, the Levites, the Benjamites, the Morenos. Okay. So that term was used to identify swarthy men. Okay. And there was a difference between, just because many of them were in Islam, they were still Israelites according to the flesh. All right. So many of those Hamites and many of the, and because Islam is not a African, or a Hamitic religion. That was Ishmael. Okay. And they forcibly forced many Hamites and many Judeans to convert. That's what was going on. And that's what's being identified. And these were the rulers of Spain and Portugal for 700 years. For 700 years. So when you backtrack from 1492, the fall and surrender of Spain to the Edomites, you go back 700 years, that's putting you at the 7th century. And guess what that means? Okay? What that means is all this architecture right here that you love to go visit and see. Okay? All this architecture in Portugal. Okay? These were built by so-called black men, not white people. But that's all who, for the most part, those are the main people to go visit and take pictures of these places. This was not built by white men at all. These very Moors are the builders of this place. So Esau Edom is just a bold-faced liar. And these are serious. Well, you know, with the way things are going now, tourism is way down. But for decades, they've made money off this stuff. Hey, let's look at Spain now. Same thing. You know, so Esau's a liar. What's that video game that became very famous? With Ezio, the Assassin's Creed, when he was climbing up all these buildings and during the medieval time. You didn't see Moors. All you saw was white people. So Esau Edom has completely, totally hijacked the truth. See, you can see Ezio running around on the building tops, assassinating people. All right. But the truth of the matter is, those weapons, they get all the clothing and the weapons right. Okay. But they can't seem to get the aesthetics right because these were the rulers of Portugal and Spain, that 700 period going backwards from 1492 to the 7th century. Okay. And not only there, but all of Europe. And then now to make that connection to the Menados and the swine. Let's show you some receipts. First, I'm going to read what I read last night at the live show. This is from Ben Franklin's 1751 letter, the increasing of mankind. All right. But it says, I'm going to read the second paragraph of paragraph 23, because 23 and 24 are the smoking gun of the lies that the so-called white man has told. But it tells you in the second paragraph in 23, it says, and since detachments of English Britain sent to America, we have the place, their places at home, soon supplied to increase so largely here. Why should the Palatine Boers, Palatine from Western Asia, what they fraudulently call the Middle East? See how Esau likes to hijack and claim and just give shit new names? And then that becomes doctrine and people don't know any better. The Palatine Boers are these same swine, these pigs that they're calling the men that you see on the screen. All right. It says, so why should these Palatine Boers, these Moors, these Morenos, these Judeans, all right, be suffered to swarm into our settlements by herding together, establish their language and their manners to the exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, all right, and the manners of their exclusion to ours? Why? I just read the Salakia. Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize? Pay attention. Us instead of us anglifying them, proving that Germany was also full of these Moors and Morenos, as we keep reading. So the same thing when you go back to the architecture in Germany, when you're looking at medieval and dark age and medieval Germany, it's the same thing. And let's keep reading his letter. It says to Germanize us instead of us Anglifying them. And you know what? And they are Anglo-Saxons. All right. We'll give them that. And some brothers like, what you talking about, brother? Hold on. No, because they did come from Isaac. You can't deny them that. The problem with them, though, is that they didn't come from Jacob. All right. So you can claim Isaac all you want. You are sons of Isaac. The Bible makes it very clear. Not the seed of Abraham, but the seed of one. So it had to be, Abraham had many seeds. Isaac being included and included it. But you had, and what? Esau got put by. So is you only counted if you're from Isaac through Jacob. Okay, let's make that very clear. And they are not. They are Isaac. They are from Isaac, but through Esau. And Esau got put by. All right. And it says, once again, who will shortly be so numerous, because they know how fertile we are, how sexually active we are, because that's a blessing, part of our strength, as to Germanize us instead of us Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs anymore, as they can acquire our complexion. All right. Jumping down to verse 24, where he really tells on himself and all of this is, I'm surprised that this letter is still on the internet. I really am. So you need to go and get it and screenshot it and all that before because they're going to take this letter down eventually. Which leads to me to add the remark that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All of Africa is black or tawny. I will be what you call a tawny complexion. All right. These men on the screen will be called swarthy. Tawny and swarthy, however, are in the same family. Okay. That's why they say from tawny to swarthy. Okay. It says, all of Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, the new white people, wholly so. So he's telling you that all of America was swarthy and tawny. Okay? And in Europe, he's telling you that they're swarthy and tawny. Now check this out. This backs up everything I've said, according to Ben Franklin. All right? And according to artifacts, truth, history, and most importantly, scripture. And in Europe, the Spaniards, the Italians, the French, the Russians, and the Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy complexion. Okay? A swarthy complexion. You can't get around this truth, man. So once again, what that does, it makes, so all the people who were behind that video game, Assassin's Creed, you know, the hit series, The Last Kingdom, the hit series, Vikings, all right, Valhalla, they lie and make them, because the time period when all those things were happening in Europe, what you look at, these were the rulers of Europe, according to the historical records, all right? So you have to ask yourself, why do these people lie? Let's get this receipt. And we'll close with this. The invasion of the coast of the British Isles by Vikings of dark or black complexion rests on historical evidence, which is too circumstantial to admit or doubt. In the Irish annals, the black Vikings are called Dublin. That's why it calls the city of Dublin, the city of blacks. Genti or black Gentiles. Black Vikings sailing across the sea, 12th century manuscript. Just like you got that tapestry, that German tapestry from the 1500s of the Germans fighting off white wild men coming out of the woods. So what these Edomites did was they took, all right, I'm just going to put that on the screen so you can screenshot it. The Origins of Anglo-Saxon Race by Thomas William Shore. That's a book, that must-get book. Others at Lincoln, The Invasion of the Coast of the British Isle by Vikings of dark black complexion. See, not Africans, but the evidence is which too circumstantial to doubt. The Irish annals of black Vikings, Dublin, black Gentiles, these blacks. And so that's what King James did. He ended the gangbanging, the same shit that Jake is doing today. All right. Because these Vikings were coming in and attacking Europeans who were also just like them. All right. All these people were Israelites, man. And what did King James do? He united Ireland, Scotland, England, France, and Paris. He was a king. He was kings and controlling all of that. The king over that. And that's what he did. And then Esau rose, and the prophecy had to be fulfilled. Spain and Portugal fell, and then eventually all of Europe fell, and Esau got dominion again. And now they're sitting on all these places, or this great architecture, and then they'll sit up and lie and call you an African and say that you have no culture when they're sitting on your culture and claiming your culture from Israel to Europe or Eurasia. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, with Kahak Wadash, Kwam Yasharala, Abad Babal.